All I could tell is that it was a 6x6 and his tines looked pretty long. And I have cut way too much class to go hunting this year.
Just sliding down the mountain.
He probably was like, "What are these two idiots doing?" It gets dark and it starts raining. I'm just not having it.
All right, here we are, Dylan and Deacon with Mountain Country Outdoors, bringing another hunting story to you guys. We love sharing these stories, man. It's always good to see you and relive some of our old memories from college. Still making new memories. We got some hunting trips coming up this year. We're hitting it hard, eh? But so I drew one of the best tags in Wyoming for elk. And I think I spent maybe 10 nights in my apartment all of September because I was just archery hunting so hard. I learned so much about elk that year. I didn't get it done with archery, unfortunately, but that was all right because I didn't care if it was with a bow or a rifle. I just wanted a solid 6x6, and I think we produced. Man, so I archery hunted, and then we get to October. I believe I shot it on October 7th, so the first week of rifle season. And at this point, I had missed so much school, man. I was behind. I was just hunting so much, and I was skipping class to go hunting. I was like, I'm not going to waste this tag, But finally, I was like, dude, I have to shoot an elk. And we were sitting on this ridge. This is a pro tip for you guys. This ridge, you could go on either side and you could glass both sides of this ridge. So anywhere that you glass, if you can get somewhere where you can see both sides of something or even 360 degrees, that's great. But so Deacon wasn't here for this, but he does come into the story here in a little bit.
Yeah.
So Thursday morning, I get up on this ridge and I'm glassing one side of the ridge for 30 minutes. Then I'd walk over to the other side, glass it for 30 minutes. And that morning, I got on 3 bulls that were about 1,000 yards away in the bottom of this big basin. And all 3 of these bulls were 6x6s. And there was one that was just, you could tell he was the Mac Daddy of the group. I had a shot at the biggest bull. This was in the morning. I had a shot at the biggest bull at about 400, I think it was like 423 yards or something, but I decided I wanted to get closer, tried to get closer, and they just disappeared. Now, what's ironic about that is I ended up shooting this bull at 475. So it ended up being farther than the shot that I passed on, and it probably was even a bigger bull that I ended up passing on, but hindsight. I saw a bull way off, like I want to say he was about 870 yards away, but it was 6 o'clock at this point, and I knew I wasn't going to get on him before dark. But I'm sitting here, I'm like, dude, I need to get back to school. I have cut way too much class to go hunting this year. And I was like, man, I need to shoot something because I can't miss any more school. This bull comes walking down the ridge directly across from me, and this ridge line is like 600 yards away, and he comes walking down. And so I looked at him through the spotting scope. I couldn't see any details at all, and it was this bull. All I could tell is that it was a 6x6 and his tines looked pretty long. And I was like, all right, you know what? It's a 6x6. It's a solid bull. I need to get back to class. So I hiked down the hill, set my 7 rem mag. I'll have to do a gear video on this one, but it's a Weatherby Vanguard with an HS precision stock and a Timney trigger, 7 rem mag. Set it up on my backpack. So I'm sitting, got my scope dialed all the way in. It's 475. And I'm like, oh man. So I look at Traceall to see what it says for ballistics. I'm like, yeah, it's a long shot, but man, I really need to get back to school. So I'm gonna take a shot at this bull. And it was honestly kind of anticlimactic for how much I hunted that season. And then I finally was just like, I don't really know how big this bull is, but I gotta be done hunting. I can't hunt anymore. I gotta get back to school. So I post up on my backpack sitting, get real steady, squeeze one off. Could not tell if I hit because I was on like 25 power, just trying to be as precise as possible. Jacked another one in, somehow miraculously got back on him for a second shot. Boom, pumped another one in him, and then lost him in the scope because I was zoomed so far in. I heard a crash, but I didn't know if it was him running through the trees. It was 475. I didn't know if I missed him or if I hit him or what was going on. I'm getting closer, walk 100 yards, and finally I'm like, okay, that's definitely an elk antler. And I get up there and I'm like, oh shit, this is a nice bull. It was a solid 6x6. It was exactly what I was looking for that year. I was super pumped on it. But then I was like, by the time I got to my bull, it was probably about 6:30. I think I shot him probably like 5:45, 6 o'clock, and I got up to him at 6:30. And I'm like, okay, yeah, it's getting dark. I'm alone in the mountains. And I've got a headlamp. I got to get this thing quartered out, and I got to cape them because I'm going to mount this bull, man. This thing's sweet. I told myself I am not going to look at the clock until I'm done quartering and caping this bull. I start quartering this bull, get it all done. Next time I look at the clock, it is exactly 10 o'clock p.m. And I got to carry the first load out. So I think I took a hind quarter on the first load and left everything else up there. I get back and it's like 12 o'clock. By the time I got down to the mountain back to my trailer, it was 1 a.m. I was like, oh my God, I was out of food. I had like the worst freeze-dried beef chili you could ever imagine. That was all I had to eat. And so I go back, fall asleep. I didn't even eat. I just passed out. Woke up the next morning, ate some of that awful beef chili, and tried to start the four-wheeler because I'm like, I'm gonna pack this thing out on the four-wheeler. It's a lot harder on a dirt bike. I called you that morning. I was like, hey, dude, I need help. I need help bad. I called a bunch of people. Deacon was the only one ready to show up. That's why he's the OG.
So I got a text from Dylan at about 11-ish or call, and it's about a 2-hour drive to get up there. It's about an hour drive to get to the mountain and then another hour to get up it.
Yeah.
So I ordered Taco Bell breakfast, and I think I ordered 2 or 3 crunch wraps. And I'm driving along, and I'm like, okay, because I was also hunting that year. I had my Camelback in the back, should have been full of water. I get about an hour down the road. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna start eating my breakfast. I look in the bag. She gave me one of my 3 crunch wraps. So I'm like, oh, I don't have any food to eat. And then I get there, and Dylan's like, oh yeah, just grab the four-wheeler because it's more of a UTV trail that I need to drive up. Not recommended for really anything other. I mean, you could take a truck, but some spots were a little sketchy.
Yeah.
So I couldn't get the four-wheeler started. So I hooked up a jump starter to the battery that would definitely provide enough power because it had electronic ignition, and that wouldn't work. So I was like, well, I'll just drive up there. So I drove up there, met Dylan, left my water in the truck, and then we started on our tandem dirt bike ride.
Yeah. So Deacon jumps on the back of my dirt bike, and I have to put my legs up on the radiator so that Deacon can use the foot pegs, and we're just riding through the woods. For reference, Deacon, what are you, like 6'7"?
Yeah.
Yeah,
6'7",
Deacon's
about
6'7". We're
100.
riding tandem on a dirt bike. It was the funniest thing you've ever seen. Every time we had to like come to a hill or something, Deacon had to jump off and walk up.
Yeah, we should have got that dude because we ran into somebody on the trail on his four-wheeler. He's like, oh, I'm just looking for cows. I can't remember, but he probably was like, what are these 2 idiots doing? We'll have to put in the video of when we were coming down the hill Dylan shot it on. We didn't feel safe walking, so we were just sliding down the hill on our butts.
Literally just sliding. I mean, it was so gnarly. And that's why after that first night packing it out, I was like, I have to get some help because I could not have done it myself.
Just sliding down the mountain. You just skiing down the hill.
So I shot this bull Thursday evening, and now it's Friday afternoon. Deacon finds this deadhead, a 6x6 deadhead. It was like 290, 300-inch bull, and he's like, no way I'm leaving this thing behind.
No.
So how many trips did we do? You found that on the first trip. We go in for the second trip.
We found it on the first trip, and on the way out, we stashed it in a tree because I had a hind quarter and I didn't want to carry it. Also on the first trip, after we stashed the deadhead, I found a shed.
Yes.
I was like, I have to have that. So then I strapped I think it was a 5-point shed. It wasn't very big, but it was still something. And I had a 5-point shed and a hind quarter. And then we got back and I was not dead, but very thirsty and dehydrated. And I
I
was
was
like,
on water too.
Dylan, go grab my Camelback from the truck. And he's like, okay. So then Dylan's gone, and I'm laying down on this rock. I'm just taking a quick nap while Dylan's gone. Dylan gets back, hands me my Camelback, and we're like, all right, we're just gonna power downhill. So we're powering back that way. I'm drinking my Camelback. Next thing I know, there's no water left, and I was like, oh great. So I didn't have any water whatsoever. And it's starting to get dark, so we have to keep pressing on and just moving before it gets too dark. And then we're bombing out of there. And then I had to go find my dead head. So I found my dead head, and that thing weighs probably 30, 40 pounds. And keep in mind, I had the crappiest pack you could possibly own. It was like a Cabela's Outfitter pack with an aluminum frame from the 80s that my dad had. And right after that trip, I bought a Kuyu pack because I was just not having it. So we grabbed the deadhead and front quarter, and then it gets dark and it starts raining. I'm just not having it.
I was worried about him, man. Deacon was dying.
Yeah.
Just no water, no food, just one single Taco Bell crunch wrap for the entire day. I didn't have any food in me. We're both like, should not be out here packing out elk, but we got to get it out. And it's Friday night at this point. It's about the same time that I shot the bull. So we're 24 hours in now. So I packed the antlers out on my dirt bike. Got a pretty sweet video of that we'll put in here. But so Deacon heads off down the mountain, goes back home, get back to school. I guess he didn't have school. It was a Saturday next day. I go back, pass out in the trailer, eat some like vegan, horrible, spare, freeze-dried food that I had stashed in my trailer. Go to bed, wake up the next morning, four-wheeler still won't start. But at least everything's back to the trailhead because Deacon came out. If he didn't, it would have taken me another day, man. So shot it Thursday evening. Now it's Saturday morning. Everything's sitting on the side of the 2-track. So I wake up early in the morning. I'm calling like everybody I know, like who has a four-wheeler, like, please come out and help me, getting a hold of people. And nobody can come out. So finally, I'm just like, all right, screw it. I was at the campground. So I just started knocking on people's doors at like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, so sorry to bother you. And this one couple, they didn't answer at first, so I walked back to my trailer and I'm just like scratching my head, just like, what am I gonna do? Then finally they came out and they're like, hey, did you knock earlier? I was like, yes. My four-wheeler won't start. I have a big old 6x6 stashed next to a 2-track back there, and I really need some help getting it out. Would you guys be willing to drive me up there in your Ranger? And they were super awesome, very great people. They drove me up there in their Ranger, loaded it all up, got it back to the truck, and I left the hunting area probably around 11 o'clock on Saturday. So I shot the bull at 6 o'clock on Thursday, and I got home at like 1 or 2 o'clock on Saturday. Again, this is why we made the guided hunting journal, guys. So if you want to be able to share your stories like this well into the future, you want to have pictures to go with it, GPS coordinates, prompts, I mean, just everything that you could think of that would turn this into a good story and help you learn from the experience. It's all in the guided hunting journal. So make sure you go to mtncountry.outdoors.com and pick up your guided hunting journal today. But man, what did we learn on this one, Deke?
From then on, I've always had a Camelback completely full of water. I always make sure I have a jug of water, also completely full of water. And then I also bring another jug of water that sits in my vehicle. So I always have plenty of water now. I've always got my Jetboil, some sort of Mountain House or Peaks, frozen or freeze-dried food, Cliff Bars. I just bring the snacks.
Yeah, yeah, man.
They're worth their weight in gold. When you're dying of cramps and your legs physically will not bend,
This guy couldn't walk. Like
my
the
legs
last
were locked straight out, and I couldn't bend
dude, I was worried. Like it was almost a search and rescue mission.
them.
Oh, so bad.
If we could write this down in a hunting journal and pass it on, then people don't have to learn the hard way like we did.
Yeah, well, yeah, my kids could be like, oh, okay. So they almost died. So we should probably bring extra water. Yeah, man, what a crazy pack out. Thank you for coming out and helping me with that. I know it was 2 years ago, but man, I would not have been able to do that alone. It would have taken me an extra day and I would have been miserable. Make sure you pick up your guided hunting journal today and also check out our merch. We just got a bunch of sweet merch. We're not wearing it yet because it's still shipping our stuff that we ordered, but go check out the merch. Get your guided hunting journal before the season. Before you get too far into the season, you want to make sure you get it now. And man, spirit stay strong and aim be true.